Okay.
This is two grumpy people on the road again. We're at Hermit's Rest
On the south rim of the Grand Canyon.
Yay.
Well, actually,
The Grand Canyon is about an hour and a half that way.
yes. But we are in Kaibab Forest, National Forest. It's a beautiful park, as you can see. Free
camping grounds,
yep. Free camping. Well, if you have, RV, tent, and all that stuff, and which we do. And if you're willing to go just a little bit, rough it just a tiny bit. There's no bathrooms out here, or trash cans, or any of the amenities,
or way to dump any sewage waste. Yes. Nothing. And
all the millions of campgrounds and RV sites and hotels and motels all along the road from I-40 along old Route 66 all the way up to the Grand Canyon itself. There's probably 300 places you could choose to stay, but not many of them are free.
No, there's a few places within Kaibab, especially. Huh?
I have something on my nose.
No.
I'm seeing things.
No, there's a lot of places to stop at. A few of them, there's a couple free ones here and there. Again, they're all mostly in Kaibab National Forest. But most of them are pay places.
Yep.
Full service though, so that's nice.
We were very lucky. We came just at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
And this beautiful park that you see with all the surrounding ground, there were only about 5 people staying here when we parked. There are a few more coming now because it's coming on weekend, and as usual at most national parks, when the weekend comes on, you get lots more visitors. But we're not here to talk so much about camping as we are to talk about the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
So, and some of the stuff that we've learned over the last few days. Obviously, we're not experts, but we're going to pass on some of the cool stuff that we learned and some tips, and maybe get you interested in coming out here and visiting this awesome national park yourself.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we noticed the other day is some of the brochures say that this is the 17th national park.
Some of them said, what, 14?
14. And then when we were watching there's a cool little video that they show at the visitor center on the South Rim. It shows on like a giant globe.
Yeah.
And it says that this is the 15th. So,
how old is it?
It's the 14th, 15th, or 17th national park.
Maybe even 16. Sure. We're not sure. Somewhere in there.
They say it's among the first of the national parks. So, Google it. I don't know what the answer is there.
Apparently they don't know either.
Apparently they don't either. I'm sure it's like how they interpret it. It's different. It's got to be something like that.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that we learned, we want to show you here at Kaibab National Forest and all throughout the area.
Everywhere you walk, lava stone. It's everywhere.
Yeah, this is the same stuff. This one's pretty smooth.
Yeah, that one's a smooth one.
Comparatively. It's the same stuff that you would use to line, like if you wanted to have a xeriscape yard or you wanted to put in a nice little walkway. This stuff is great paving material. Well, not paving material. You just throw it in like gravel. And you paid probably $6 a bag
at least,
or more in the stores. No reason to pay for it here. It's everywhere. You can't get away from it.
Yeah,
unfortunately, most of it is not like this. Most of it is like this. Hard,
giant pieces.
Pointy, sharp, stuck in the ground.
Here. And we can find hundreds just right here.
This is actually lava rock. And this is one of the things that we've learned. We can kind of figure it out for ourselves, obviously. You can actually see places in the ground where it has, where it was either a pyroclastic flow, meaning the lava that flows away from a volcano, or where it actually oozed up from the ground. You can actually see in some of these parks and in some of the areas in Williams and some of the surrounding towns, literally places where the lava has come up. And what we've learned is that most of it came from a couple of volcanoes not far from Grand Canyon. It's visible from the Grand Canyon.
Yep.
And those erupted as short a time ago as 1,000 years. And they're still active, semi-active. So, yeah, there's a possibility they could erupt again while people are here.
Yes.
Kind of cool. One of the things we wanted to show you was something that we learned when we went to, was it called the Yavapai?
The Yavapai?
the old Pueblo ruins on the south rim of the Grand Canyon. There's a really nice little tiny museum.
Yes.
And there are some old ruins of an old Pueblo. Those are pre-Columbian Pueblo Indians ruins. They're not the modern Pueblo ruins, but they're very similar to modern ones. And one of the things we learned was
that
you see some of this cool lichen growing on all of the rocks. You see it everywhere here, on big rocks and small ones. This lichen was used by early Americans, Native Americans, to dye clothing, but they also used it as a native remedy for like toothaches and headaches and things like that. Now, I don't know how well it worked or if it's safe, so I'm not going to keep any and try it myself. If you've had, more power to you. But it's kind of interesting to know that something that is just everywhere in this area that you can just pick up, you can see on any of the rocks, was something that they made use of back in the
some of them are more covered, some of them are less covered.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
So that's one of the things that we learned by going to the national parks.
Right. Interesting note about around here is that they're very, very, very resource conscious around here.
Ah, yes.
They're very conscious on how much electricity and water they use, as well as obviously how much trash gets put into the environment, which is always great, obviously. But
Yeah, they're real big on recycling, so that's kind of cool.
yes, all over in the Grand Canyon, all the water they use is from the natural spring.
Very clean, so you don't need to filter it or anything like that.
Oh yeah, it's very nice.
Who were
Nice.
the earliest visitors to the Grand Canyon?
The earliest visitors, the Navajos.
There have been several Native American tribes, actually. The Hopi, the Navajo, obviously the Puebloans.
Yes.
So many different Native American tribes have made their home in or around this area. Now it's kind of interesting because they each had their territory. So there were some that were on the rim, and then there were some that were below in the canyon itself, and then some in this sort of area here. So most of them did do some sort of farming. What they would do is those, especially those closer to the rims or in the canyon, they had to find areas either near the river or along fault lines, is what they were saying. If you find a fault line in the natural rock, that's where the water will naturally flow. And that's one of our new neighbors pulling in. I told you it's the weekend, we're getting more business. So as the water naturally flows in and collects, then that creates little pockets, little areas where they can do some agriculture, and then they would do things like dig ditches or use terrace farming in order to make maximum use of the small amount of water that they would get here annually. So they were growing corn, squash, even cotton has been grown by natives in this area. That's kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
And then after the Native Americans, who were the first people to come? Who were the first, I guess you would say, European peoples? It's like Jeopardy.
Phone a friend.
The conquistadors, of course.
Oh, of course.
Of course. I don't think the Vikings ever made it this far. But the conquistadors definitely did, and I think it's kind of interesting to read. Well, when we went to Coronado National Forest, obviously we read about them some more, but one of the things they did is when they got to the canyon, they thought, well, if we go along it far enough, we'll find a way around. Well, to go all the way around the canyon, you would have to go a few hundred miles. So it didn't work out too well for them. But they were able to find some of the ways down the canyon that the Native Americans had always used. So they went down into the canyon the same way everyone else does.
Yes.
And then back up the other side very arduously. But they did travel a long way along it, trying to find a way across without descending and ascending the canyon. It's like a mile deep, they said, the canyon.
Yeah, the average depth is about a mile.
Just imagine climbing a mile off sheer cliff faces. And then the only paths they had to follow were like little person-wide paths that the Indians had sort of worn in along fault lines that they had discovered various ways that they could traverse going back and forth down there. So kind of cool. Then after that, there were the miners, and they mined. What else? The copper here, a little bit of silver, not much. I think it's mostly copper. they got out of the Grand Canyon. One of the things that we thought was really kind of cool, if you are interested in learning when you go to the national park and not just taking in the most awesome view ever, because those are some of the most awesome views you will ever see. But everybody tells you about those. There's a little path that counts down the years.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember what it's called? I think it's Time Path or something like that. It's not hard to find. It's right down the South Rim. You can start at any of the visitor centers pretty much.
Well, it goes from the Geology Museum. Yes. And then if you're going back in time, you will head west.
You go all the way to the Maricopa Point.
Maricopa Point is where it stops. And it counts down all the way down to 4 billion years ago.
The age of the Earth.
Yeah, basically. And then, but if you wanted to go forward, you could go the other way.
So it starts off by counting just years. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on. Then it goes on to decades. And then it goes into centuries. Yes. And then millennia. And so pretty soon it's counting down, 167,000 million years.
Yes.
This is a number that is very difficult to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool because as you go, it'll have little little pieces of rock and so forth to illustrate this is the kind of rock that is that old.
Yep.
And it kind of helps you a little bit conceptualize how much time it took to form the Grand Canyon and why it happened the way it did and why the rocks look the way they do. You can see very clear visual color bands in the rocks. And there are many points along the way at the Geology Museum and various signs on the rim path and elsewhere that actually explains what those different layers are.
Yeah, and there's also wonderful little points here and there where they point them out to you.
Oh yeah, like the cool. They have like a little viewer that has different height levels marked on it, and it'll tell you if you put the viewer here, you'll see this point or that point. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did kind of realize was, even though, they call it a hike, but if you're walking the rim trail until you get all the way to Maricopa, it's all nicely paved. So it's just like a little walkway.
Yeah. There's a couple of places where they have a little handicap sign and it splits in two. It's just one's not quite as smooth and it has a little bit of a grate up or down. But outside of that, for the most part, 99% of it is all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can walk all the way from
the main visitor center.
The main visitor center, all the way to Maricopa.
Mather's Point.
From Mather's Point to Maricopa Point. And that's at
least 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah. It's a pretty decent one. And you can go that whole distance. It's all handicap capable.
Handy-capable.
There you go.
Accessible.
Accessible to people in wheelchairs and so forth. We didn't see anybody in motorized vehicles, but we're told that you're allowed to take them. I didn't see anybody in them.
No.
I'm not sure how
batteries
convenient
would run out after a while.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
convenient
you
don't want to use them. On the edge of the Grand Canyon. I can't go home.
Near all the parking areas, it would be perfectly easy to use one. But once you got away from the parking areas and the paths get a little bit narrower, it's kind of harder you might not want to use one, especially during the busy season when there are so many people on the path.
Yeah.
There are lots of opportunities to leave the path and go closer to the edge where it's relatively safe to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And we enjoy doing that.
And, of course, there's the several points that are marked out on the maps.
One of the things we didn't realize the last time we were here is that if you take a right turn rather than going into the Mather's Point main visitor center.
And continuing on that side of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, that's the direction there's actually a little driving path you can go where you can pull over several points and get some incredible views. Yeah. I think Grandview was living up to its name. The Grand View. It was really the most awesome view.
Yes.
But there are several along that path that are just breathtaking. And then once you get all the way down to the end of that path, that's where you run into the Watchtower.
The Watchtower, yes. That was one of my favorite places to stop at. It's they built a large tower right on the edge of the cliff. Mm-hmm. And built it several stories tall. And it looks like it was built way, way, way back. And I say looks because it wasn't. It's a lot newer than it looks.
The whole outside is covered with native rock. And then on the inside it's decorated in such a way that looks like adobe. So it really looks like an ancient Native American structure, but it's not.
It's not quite as old as it's made to look.
It's very sturdy.
Yes, it doesn't look quite as sturdy as it actually is.
It is very beautiful. It is well worth the drive. It's a little bit of a drive if you're starting from Mather's Point to drive out there. There is an entrance closer to the Watchtower if you want to enter from that side of the park.
There also is some first come, first serve RV parking over there too.
Yes.
It's separate from the rest of it.
Not as much as in the main park, but there's some there. And it's less busy than most of the rest of the park.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize.
Like its own mini Grand Canyon area. Yeah. Mini park within the park.
But what's really nice is to take those stairs. It winds up stairs, 3 or 4 floors. And it's lined with, there are windows all the way around on all floors. Very convenient for you to take pictures out of. And if you look at the main views on the 3rd floor, it's just incredible views that you get. Because you're higher than the edge of the canyon, so you can actually get out and get photos that show the real depth and breadth of the canyon. Yes. Whereas most of the time when you're taking them directly from the rim, it's really hard to get the photo to give you the depth perception. Yeah. When you look at it, it doesn't look as impressive as it does in real life.
Exactly.
So that's just a little hint, especially if you're really big into taking pictures, but it's also just worth it just to visit the tower and see it. It's really pretty. And there is a little snack bar over there and everything.
They also have installed on the deck near the top of the Watchtower. There's a deck, and it has little viewpoints around on one section, and it has slits on the top. If you look in there, you can point your camera in there, and they have a blacked out mirror.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I didn't at first realize what they were. They're wooden boxes that have a slot in the top of them. So if you see the wooden boxes with the slots, then you know what you're looking at. Yeah. So you just look directly down and sort of back, and you'll see that there's a mirror there, and those are great for taking sunrise and sunset photos.
Yes.
So that's pretty awesome that they actually installed those for people. I don't know how often they're used because we weren't there at sunset.
Plus, the Watchtower does close at like 6 or 7, so usually the sun's setting by the time the Watchtower closes.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's
so you might have to ask special permission to go up there for the sunset
or if they're having night programs.
Yes, or if they're having evening programs, which they have a lot of around there.
Yeah. But that's definitely probably a less-known little feature that they... I mean, they seem to be advertising it, but yet it doesn't seem like many people are going over there, and it's really worth the trip.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely worth it.
And so here's one little tip from us. If you're wanting to have a less busy experience, then the obvious thing to do is to stay away from where you see the tour vehicles.
Yes, stay away from the pink Jeeps.
Everyone is advocating them, and they're a great resource for people who want to take them. But if you're looking for a less busy experience,
any place you see
you
see the pink Jeeps, that means that there's going to be lots of people parked there because they're considered, definite stop points or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's the Grand Canyon. Anywhere you stop along the way, you're going to get a fantastic view. Yes. So you don't have to stop at the points everyone else stops at.
Yes. You can always come back to them when they leave.
And you can always come back when it's less busy. If you want to get no crowds or very few crowds, go on a day when it's raining or really cold, because people obviously don't want to be out there hiking along the rim when it's raining or cold. You can just get out of your car, take a few pictures. The only thing is, if it's rainy or cold, you're not going to be able to see very far in the canyon. You're just going to see the more near formations, and then you're going to see like a haze beyond that. So it's it's kind of a trade-off kind of thing.
Yeah, trade-off. And then there's... For anyone who doesn't realize, I didn't realize this at first, is how close that most of the lodges were to the rim.
I really did not realize how, because we stayed at a lodge there before, but we didn't stay at
the more expensive one. We stayed at one of the cheapest ones they had.
I think we stayed at Yavapai, wasn't it?
Yavapai Lodge.
Yavapai Lodge, which is nice.
It's not bad.
It's a little primitive for the price.
Yes.
No air conditioning.
But it has its own little community there where there's a bank.
Yes, it's a nice little shopping area right there and everything.
But
and it's pretty close to some of the activities too.
Yes.
Bright Angel Lodge.
Yes, the Bright Angel
right on the rim.
I mean, there is a set of cabins you can stay in where your freaking front window is steps, and I mean literally not more than 6 feet from the edge of the canyon.
Yeah.
That is close.
That is close. Unfortunately, considering the primitive nature of those cabins, they're very pricey.
Yeah.
They're very, I mean, they're worth it if that's, you know, if that's your thing. But
You have electricity and running water, but outside of that, your options get
kind of have to
limited.
be, I mean, if you're going to spend a lot of time in your cabin, either because you can't walk a lot in the heat and stuff, or maybe you're on your honeymoon or something. Isn't that a beautiful bird? I wish you could see this bird that just went flying by. It's brilliant blue. But I think that would be worth it if you were going to be spending a lot of time in your cabin.
Oh, yeah.
Because that view is incredible. And you're right there, if you're at Bright Angel Lodge, which is expensive, we're not saying it's not, but it's right there by Bright Angel Trail. It's right near where you can take the mule rides down.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that far from where you can catch a train.
Yes.
So it's right in the hub of things. There's a little ice cream shop there. I mean, it's just an adorable little community
it's
there.
a village. It's a little village that they named Village.
Yeah.
Something Village. And that's
Right.
where all of the main cluster of the lodges and stuff are. Driving that way, not fun.
Now, the other really cool one to be at would be the, I think it's called Western something Lodge, and it's right by the train station.
Oh, yes.
So that's the other possibility to consider, especially if you're going to get a train package. Drive the train into the canyon, stay right there. You're very close to the Red Loop, which takes you around to Hermit's Rest, which we found out kind of late. We're going to be going there probably tomorrow or the next day, and we'll get lots more cool pictures and video. But Hermit's Loop, if you follow along that way, is Hopi Point and several other points that are just
Pima Point.
Incredible views. Beautiful. And there's the statue.
Yes.
Memorial statue is over that way. So that's some other things. You can't, most of the year, that Hermit's Loop is closed to vehicle traffic. You have to take the bus or walk or bike.
Yes.
You can't drive. So I think that's a little less traveled, and that's kind of a cool, lesser known fact that you can kind of take the bus, get off at one of the points, walk to a few of the others, take the bus, so on, back. So it's a little less challenging than walking the Rim Trail.
Exactly.
And you still get incredible views.
Yes.
Anywhere you go, you get incredible views. But I think those two were two of the best. Grandview was one of the best. Mm-hmm. And then a couple that along the South Rim.
And for that one, that is, if you wanted to just ride the bus to get good pictures, that's about the only one that would give you some pretty decent pictures on board the bus.
Yeah, usually the shuttle buses don't get you anywhere near the Rim. You're not going to be able to take pictures.
Because they're driving on the regular
bus.
roads, and most of them, except for the one that's the Overlook Drive,
yes,
you're not going to see the Rim very much. But
right.
But that one, Red Route, actually it goes pretty dang close to it.
And we saw elk and deer while on that bus. Although I only saw the deer's butt. I looked up just in time to see him going that way. I saw a deer butt.
But you did see an elk that was in the parking lot when we got there.
We went to go into the vehicle, and there was an elk standing right there at the edge of the parking lot, grazing, and we were able to stand there for quite a bit of time and videotaping and photographing, well, her. And
what about deer? Deer. What deer?
What deer? The deer we saw while riding the red line at the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah, we saw lots of deer. Not as many as we saw driving up in the Kaibab National Forest, though.
Yes, we saw I think about a dozen. Just driving to our campsite here.
When she didn't have the camera out.
Of course. I didn't have the camera out when we saw them on the red line either. And all I saw on the red line was the deer's butt.
Yes, but when we first got there, we pulled into the parking lot and you saw an elk that you were able to take all kinds of pictures of.
We were able to, because he just I guess they're not that shy around people.
Or at least that one wasn't, that's for sure. Just hanging around that parking lot the whole day, it seemed like.
People were walking by, honking their horns, and it was just there, casually eating some grass and letting us videotape them.
Yep.
What else do we want to? There are all kind of animals in the Grand Canyon and in the forest. The most common are the squirrels.
Well, squirrels are everywhere.
Squirrel. So we've seen deer, we've seen elk, we've seen squirrels. We haven't seen the prairie dogs, but we've seen evidence of them. Lots of cool birds.
Yeah.
The new condors are the big thing in the Grand Canyon. Yes. And this was something I didn't know. The condors in the canyon had completely died out.
Pretty much.
And they reintroduced them, I think it's in the 80s. I'll have to look that up.
I can't remember what she
correct.
said because we weren't actually in the conversation. We just walked past and heard
Well,
it.
there's there's various signs and things in the
But
part
the point
explaining
is that they brought him back, and they had them, and they've been mating them with captured species. And this is the first. They're about to have their first wild-born condor from a wild-born
right.
for the first time.
Because they had one that was born of two
Captive
birds. It was born in the wild, and so now those wild birds have now mated for the first time. They're getting ready to have
the first
fully
true wild-born with zero memory of captivity
in the canyon. And this has been decades that they've been gone, and so they're coming
It'll be
back.
nice. They'll be coming back.
But you can actually see them. Not very often. We only saw like a couple. You see a lot more of the big like ravens or crows, or whatever they are, the big blackbirds. But every now and then you'll spot a condor. I wasn't able to get any on video yet. Maybe tomorrow or the next day, because it's kind of hard to get everything ready, and you kind of have to be prepared in advance.
Yes.
Because they're flying. What's really cool is if you're at certain positions like the Grand View Lookout, you're actually at the level that they're flying. Well, if you go down, we went down the stairs a little ways. You descend into the canyon just a little bit, and then that way, as they fly, you're actually at the level they're flying.
That is true.
That is really cool.
Yes. And then, for those of you who want to get pictures of the Colorado, but don't want to go all the way down to the Colorado, there's a couple of really good places to do it. Most of the main visitor center lookout points, you'll get a glimpse. And I mean, not even the size of a quarter, you'll be able to actually see
that little
the
triangle over there?
There's a section of it that's literally said, if you look, there's a triangle of it, and that's all you see. But, if you go all the way to the Watchtower where we went, gorgeous views, you can see it crystal clear, huge section of it. Or if you take the red route to the other side, to the west side of the canyon, you'll get a good view there.
Right. So either end of the South Rim Trail, in other words.
Yes.
Well, actually, not either end. Sort of like this.
If you imagine it as a C shape, which it kind of is, on either of the top parts of the C is where you'll
get the best views of the river. The main part of the Rim Trail where everybody's walking, you really won't see much of the Colorado.
No. You'll see a little bit of evidence, and that's about it.
Something else we learned when we were talking about condors that just reminded me of something else. They're asking people not to throw change into the canyon or onto the rocks. Now, you'll notice as you come in Mather Point, and you're walking along the rim, there's a couple of flat rocks not far from viewing areas where you'll see lots of coins where people have thrown them over the years. And that's because that used to be a tradition.
Yes.
And there was even a guy several years back who used to make his living jumping from rock to rock, picking up the coins, and people, this was a big tourist. People took pictures of him and stuff doing this craziness. He actually fell to his death, which should be an illustrative point. Don't jump across those rocks at the top of the Grand Canyon, you fool. But the other part of that is they're asking us not to do that anymore.
Not to do that at all anymore, because apparently the birds, looking for who knows what, were eating them, and of course, it's not good for the animals to eat them.
And they said they had one that actually...
Yeah, there was one sign that specifically was stating, do not do it, because we recently had a bird die.
So
while it was trying to feed its young. So
they're just now reintroducing the condors to the canyon, so they don't want to kill off
the first ones that they got.
So please don't throw coins into the canyon. As tempting as it might be to see how far it takes for it to go down or whatever, don't do that. Besides, there are better uses for your money.
There's a lot more places to spend it. They'll take it gladly. Anywhere else.
Not only do they have lots of gift shops that you can spend your money at, but they also have a lot of the free museums and things will have the little donation boxes that you can put money in. That's a much better use of change. Yes, we found. Did we find one or two press penny machines? I know we found.
There's
one.
More than two, though.
We were specifically looking for them in some places and didn't find them. But
there's at least 4 in
over
Grand
by
Canyon.
the tower. We found by the Watchtower.
Watchtower
in their little general store. There is a press penny machine.
It's actually at the little store before you get to the Watchtower, not in the Watchtower.
No, not in the Watchtower.
Because there's a store in the Watchtower too, but that one doesn't have the press penny machine.
No.
It's at the
little general store where there's also the little diner.
Yeah, the little snack store.
Which also, by the way, has some of the best prices for food while you're there.
That was the best prices store anyway.
Yeah.
Seemed like.
Yeah, that seemed like the best little store for if you're not the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
So they have some really cool stores like the Pueblo store. Oh
yeah.
My God, they have so many beautiful things in there, but the prices are match the beauty of the stuff they're selling. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and they also were the only place that had actual bumper stickers.
Yes, it was the only place we could find actual selection of bumper stickers. We found a couple places had some stickers, just regular stickers, and that was about it.
Yeah.
In the entire Grand Canyon, and we went to several little stores.
Yeah. So the Watchtower is kind of a cool little area for that.
Yeah. We watched we learned about the Kolb studio.
Oh yes,
the Kolb brothers.
The Kolb brothers. Those guys are pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I had never heard of them before.
Neither had I. I heard Kolb studio, but I didn't know that's what it was.
Yeah. So there were these two brothers from the turn of the century.
Apparently very famous.
1800s.
That's the sad part.
Yeah. They started a tiny little photo studio there at the Grand Canyon, and they turned it into a very successful operation. But while they were doing that, they were climbing the Grand Canyon to take photographs, and they did some incredible
filmed their
stunts.
escapades too, which was interesting.
And then they took some of the earliest videos.
Yes.
And so you can actually see them doing things like fording the river and climbing between giant rocks, getting ridiculous risks.
When they gave up actually doing this, they took all their footage and all their pictures, and they compiled a little lecture and a video that they would play. And the Kolb studio was turned also into an auditorium. And so if you go up in there, you go down some stairs, and you're in what's now a museum art gallery, and playing on one wall is a section of that video so that you can see it.
And what's interesting to learn is that video was so popular and was seen by so many people that they got invited by the National Geographic Society, by the National Park Service, and a lot of other actual official bodies to help them run river missions, to map the river, map the Grand Canyon, to lead various expeditions into the park. So it's kind of cool to think that they started off just being just regular guys, bought a little tiny photo studio, and they bloomed into this huge phenomenon.
But
But they took incredible risks doing it. I mean, some of these photos that they have are
they showed
mind-blowing.
Their first portable boat.
Yeah. Canvas.
Yeah, it's made of canvas, and there was one other material they used. I can't remember what. But yeah, it was the lightest boat that they had used. The first one they went out,
was wood.
They actually have, I think they have it in the visitor center. It's a heavy boat. I believe there's 5 in total, and they weighed something like 300 or 400 pounds when wet. When dry, I think they're like 200. But
I think it's kind of cool too that you see how many of the cameras that they use. They were obviously people who were really on the cutting edge. They were the technophiles of their time.
Yeah.
Really, and that's probably why they were so successful, because they were always reaching for that next thing, and not afraid to take risk at all.
Yes.
And it's so funny to look at all the demonstrations, see so many things that they did to try to make money. Like those guys, they would do anything to make money. They made their own stereo pictures. They made their own photo albums, souvenirs. They made movies. They were the first. You talk about ride photographs at the amusement park, whatever. They started that. They were the first ones to do it. They would take a photo of the mule riders as they were heading down. They would rush down to their dark room that was below. Quickly develop the pictures, rush back, and be ready for the mule riders when they came back from their ride to sell them a souvenir picture of themselves on a mule.
Yes.
And that was way before anything like an instant camera. I mean, they were using heavy glass sheets and things to do this. So that's pretty amazing. They did that. Pretty smart of them to figure that out. And they were charging tolls of people to use the Bright Angel Trail. That's hilarious.
Yes, I remember that.
Can you imagine? There's a toll to use this dirt trail here. Well, I'm not paying you. Well, you're not getting down to the canyon.
Go find your own way.
Find your own way down. Good luck. But they didn't even cut that trail. That trail was cut by miners.
Yep.
That's hilarious. My kind of guys. Enterprising.
Yes.
So what, did we learn anything else? We learned so many things. We learned something about evolution, which is kind of odd.
What'd you learn?
Most of the squirrels on the South Rim and throughout the park are a specific type of squirrel.
What?
And
Squirrel's a squirrel.
no, there are different breeds and so forth of squirrel, depending on where you go. But these are all one type of squirrel. But if you go over to one particular part on the North Rim, there's another kind of squirrel. And you know why? Because they're surrounded by the painted desert. So they were geographically cut off. They originally were those same kind of squirrel, and now they're a whole new breed. They almost speciated. They didn't speciate, but they differentiated.
Suck it, creationists.
So you don't have to be on an island. You can also be in a little space on a canyon surrounded by a desert. Works just as well.
Yes.
But I'd heard about the mice, but I had never heard about. But they're a different color. They said that the reason that they are that color is because of their unique geographic niche that they fill. I didn't know that. Well, I think we've covered an awful lot. Maybe we'll save the rest of it for tomorrow or the next day. And then after that, after the Grand Canyon, we'll be traveling on to Meteor Crater. The Meteor Crater. We'll be traveling on the Meteor Crater after Grand Canyon.
Yes.
So, two grumpy people. We're not that grumpy today, but that's because you caught us on a good day. You should have seen us yesterday. And we may get grumpier still as this long road trip continues with 2 dogs, 3 cats, in an RV cross country.
Loaded
with a
down.
very small budget.
So there's 2 grumpy people on the road.